Hi, thanks for watching. Okay, so in this video, I'd like to talk about why I think the recent Danny Masterson sentence was unfair. Okay, and I really believe it was unfair. This is just my opinion. Okay, this is my opinion. I've worked in criminal defense for about 13 years. Okay, and I've worked on a lot of federal criminal cases, a lot of state criminal cases. I have worked on several cases involving, sexual crimes. Okay, and I've have more than 20 years of experience working in litigation. All right. So I just want to, just give my opinion as to why I think that sentence was actually unfair. Okay. And also my reservations about California's one strike law. Okay. Because California's one strike law sets up like four baskets. Okay. Where if you fall under one of these four baskets, okay, you can extend the normal statute of limitations. All right. And so that for crimes like rape, all right, or sexual assault, you can extend the statute of limitations. Where normally, if you're a victim of these crimes, you have to bring that action, or the state has to bring those charges within 10 years of the commission of the crime or the reasonable discovery of the crime. Okay, so I'm not going to say that the judge made a mistake by denying Danny's motions to dismiss based on statute of limitations. Okay, Danny's defense team years ago, they brought motions to dismiss these charges, okay, arguing that the statute of limitations shouldn't apply. Now, I think the judge actually properly applied the law as it is, okay? So my question is more with the fairness of the law, okay? So as far as the sentence, all right, that may also be out of the control of the judge, in the sense that the law probably does mandate, the certain minimum sentencing. Okay. But I'm just going to explain why I feel that even if the law allows the sentence that Danny got, why I just feel it was unfair. Okay. And so in some sense, I'm not so much saying that the judge made a mistake. Okay. So this is not arguments on appeal necessarily. Okay. But I'm just going to say why I think the way the law is set up, I think does produce what I believe is an unfair result. All right. So let me just try to set this up. Okay, the first thing, let's keep in mind context. Okay, context. All right, in the United States. Okay, and this is important. All right, in the United States, if you're guilty, okay, of committing second degree murder, okay, typically, most states will set the reference point around 15 years. Okay, around 15 years. All right. When you add up all the factors, the mitigating and aggravating factors, oftentimes, okay, in the United States, not always, oftentimes you'll see people who commit second degree murder and they might get 7 or 8 or 9 years of prison time. All right. So that's just a reference. Okay. That's second degree murder. Oftentimes with second degree murder, you'll see a sentence closer to 15 years. Okay. That's just the way it works out statistically. But when you add up all the people who actually commit second degree murder, okay, when you add up all the cases that get tossed out on technicalities, or because there's problems with evidence, or maybe there's problems, the state feels they have a weak case, and so the prosecutor, they just bring, like, say, a manslaughter, or they bargain it down to manslaughter. When you add up all those cases, okay, like the average penalty for people who truly are guilty of second degree murder is probably like around 7 or 8 years, or maybe even a little less when you consider all the plea bargains that go on. Okay, so, and if I'm wrong, maybe I'm wrong by 1 or 2 years. The statistics, it's hard to do statistics because you have to include also the people who plea out, and also the cases where the prosecutor doesn't feel they have really good evidence, and so they charge down. Okay, they downcharge. So I'm just saying that I feel like it's not unfair to say that the average person who's truly guilty of second degree murder probably only ends up doing on average, probably about 6 to 9 years. Okay, something like that, with the reference point being something like 15 years. Okay, that's second degree murder. All right. Now, of course, there are aggravated forms of second degree murder, but I'm just saying just your basic average second degree murder. All right. Let's look at something else. All right. What about something like aggravated battery? Okay, now what is aggravated battery? Aggravated battery is basically when someone gets the shit beat out of them. I mean, the shit beat out of them. Okay, aggravated battery. Okay, with some bodily harm. Okay, so basically, you could have a situation where somebody on the street just attacks some random stranger, like we've seen these videos where somebody will just attack a random stranger on the street and just punch them really, really bad, and leave them like with a head injury or something. Now, I'm not talking about like the most serious, right? So, because aggravated battery can get really bad. Okay, and I understand that sometimes aggravated battery can actually result in like, permanent brain injuries or whatever. But let's just take the average aggravated battery. Okay, somebody just comes up to you on the street. Okay, and they just beat the crap out of you. Okay, just beat the crap out of you. I mean, to where you're in the hospital. All right, and you're even, when it first happens, like you don't even know if you're going to survive. All right, and that's like, you could think your life is in danger. All right, aggravated battery, probably the most on average that a person will actually do for aggravated battery will probably be about 15 years. Okay, and that's the most. All right, yes, there are different kind of exceptional cases of aggravated battery where if you add up, like, say, the use of certain weapons or whatever, you might get it up into the range where it's almost equivalent to attempted murder, basically. And oftentimes, if it's really aggravated, the state will probably also charge attempted murder. Okay, so let's just keep it down to your kind of average case of aggravated battery. And we're talking about a reference point of maximum 15 years. And typically, I'm sorry, it could be between like 2 and 8 years, okay, depending on also how it's plea bargained. And also, it could just be how does the prosecutor feel about their evidence? And some cases just get tossed out. Some cases the defendant wins on a technicality. So when you take the full average with all the plea bargains and everything, you're looking at maybe like 3 to 8 years, roughly. With a maximum of 15 years. Okay, and that's that. You have to think, to get to the max on an aggravated battery, you're talking about a really bad case. Okay, so let's just use that as a reference point. Okay. And then let's also look at the kind of things you would have to do, let's say, outside of the scope of rape. Okay. What are the things you'd have to do to get a real 30 to life sentence? Okay. I'm going to tell you right now. All right. In most states that I'm aware of, okay, to get into the range of 30 to life, okay, you're talking about first degree murder. All right. So we're putting this on the level of first degree murder or some kind of terrible kidnapping, like aggravated kidnapping. Okay, where you could end up doing a life sentence, or like some kind of aggravated, I've even seen carjacking cases. Carjacking cases. All right, where they'll take people out and beat them up with pistols and stuff and take their car. And I've seen those only get, like, say, maybe 20 to 22 or 25 years. All right, so I'm just keeping it real. All right, so to get like a sentence of 30 years to life, I'm saying that's probably in the range of first degree murder. In some states, maybe not. Maybe some states would be like a mandatory life sentence. But I think we're not far outside the range of a first degree murder, okay, or let's say an aggravated kidnapping, okay. And just try to imagine what that means. All right. Also, yes, it's true that if you commit certain sexual crimes against children, okay, in some states, including child pornography, okay, where really we're talking about abusing children, all right, and doing unthinkable things to children that are maybe 9 or 10 years old or even younger, okay, that would maybe get a person a 30-year sentence, okay, from my experience, all right. So we're taking whatever happened with these accusers, okay, whatever happened with these accusers, and factoring in that they took time. Some of them took time to even realize that what happened was actually a crime. Okay, so they had to have the assistance of psychologists and maybe, really introspecting and really thinking about it. It wasn't even obvious to them necessarily that they had been the victims of a crime. Okay, now I'm not saying they weren't victimized. I'm just saying it was the kind of crime where you almost had to think about it even to know whether you were a victim. Okay, at least from their point of view. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and feel comfortable, okay, that Danny Masterson gets a sentence that's about on par with some people that commit first degree murder, okay, depending on the state, right? But just, roughly, that he's basically getting a sentence that's roughly equivalent to somebody who commits first degree murder or is involved in sexual abuse against like someone who's 7 or 8 or 9 years old. All right. Or something involving children, and I think we should ask ourselves, does that really make sense? I mean, without getting into all the minutia of what the law says, sometimes you have to think with your stomach. And does your stomach tell you that makes sense? My stomach tells me that doesn't make sense, and I'm not trying to say that there shouldn't be a sentence for what he did and the circumstances of how it was finally, the charges were finally brought against him. Okay, so that, there probably is a sentence that does fit the actual circumstances here, and I'll just say right now, just based on all the crimes that I've seen and all the cases that I've worked on, given the time that's gone by and given the quality of the evidence, okay, the quality of the evidence, okay, I would say that in this case, my stomach tells me that a sentence closer to, let's say, 8 or 10 years to me would feel a little more like in the right range compared to other cases. All right. Now, I'm going to try and explain why I feel these cases get sort of overcharged and overpunished. Okay. Why do I feel? I think there's something political here. I think there's something political here. And I think this is, you know, whether we like it or not, the courts, they sort of have to reflect the conscience of the present day. Okay. And presently today, there is kind of we're sort of at the end of a movement. I think kind of a sort of the Me Too movement where a lot of women, they're really demanding like more respect for, let's say the kind of abuse they take in intimate partner violence, intimate partner sexual violence. And basically, let's not forget, Danny's not accused of taking random people and drugging them and raping them. Okay. Now, I know there has been some rumors that maybe like in New York at like some nightclubs that occasionally he would try to get involved with people he didn't know. Okay. That may or may not be true. Okay. But I'm just saying the actual accusers here, these are people that actually knew him. And at least in two of the cases, at least that I'm aware of, these accusers were actually in relationship with Danny. Okay, so this is basically in the category, to me, this is the category of intimate partner sexual violence or sexual abuse. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and assume that everything is true. All right. We don't know, for example, because so much time has gone by, we can't take a blood sample and we can't actually analyze what date rape drug supposedly was used. All right. The allegation just based on the word and the memory of the accusers is that some kind of drug was involved. Okay. So typically the date rape drugs are going to be like GHB, ketamine, or Rohypnol, typically, or even alcohol or mixtures. All right. Now, let's just be honest. It's not like they were given fentanyl. All right. It's not like they were given, let's say, high dose of like heroin or something that could really cause like a serious risk of death. I'm not saying there's no risk. Okay. Even like in pre-anesthesia, before they give you general anesthesia, they might give you ketamine or they might give you GHB, whatever. So I understand that, we're talking about controlled substances that are not without risk. Okay. Let's not minimize what happened either. Okay. It is absolutely a felony to give someone a drug without them realizing it. All right. And there are, let's say, dangers involved in something like that, because a person really could, let's say, have like an unexpected reaction to those drugs. All right. So you are messing around with somebody and you are getting into their health without their knowledge. So, I mean, let's not minimize that, but let's also try to put it on the same level of other crimes. Okay. And let's try to put it on the same level of, let's say, what it really means to deserve a 30-year sentence or a life sentence. All right. So I understand that date rape drugs may have been involved. Okay. But because time has gone by, we don't know the dosages. Okay. We don't know the dosage. We don't know exactly what drugs or what mixture of drugs. Okay. So we don't have the luxury of knowing how dangerous the dosing was. Okay. Because if it was a relatively mild dose of GHB or ketamine, okay, or if it was a relatively mild combination of alcohol and something else, it may be that realistically there wasn't that much danger. In other words, you don't want to put that in the same basket necessarily as if somebody is given, like, say, heroin or fentanyl or maybe like a heavy opioid dose or something like that. So, or even there are even dosages of alcohol where if you somehow slip alcohol, let's say, where a person doesn't realize how much alcohol they're getting, a really bad dose of alcohol could be more dangerous than a mild dose of ketamine. All right. And I don't know that in today's reality or today's legal reality, the reality of today's legal system, I don't know if, say, slipping someone extra alcohol is going to be on the same level as, let's say, committing first-degree murder. You know what I'm saying? So basically, because so much time has gone by, we don't have the luxury of knowing really the dosages and really, let's say, what drugs may have been used. And there's reason to believe, I mean, realistically, that they may have been given dosages that didn't really put them in a life-threatening situation. Okay. So what we're talking about is, yes, it is aggravating to drug somebody. It is aggravating. Okay. But the question is, because it was intimate partner, okay, it's different if you drug a stranger. If I'm a stranger and I wake up, let's say, in a hotel room and some strange people have just, sexually abused me, okay, that's going to put me in much more fear that my life was in danger, okay. It's going to be much different in an intimate partner setting, all right. So basically, I'm just saying is that because we don't have the luxury of knowing exactly what drug was used and in what dosage, okay, basically what we're left with a picture of an intimate partner sexual crime, okay, intimate partner sexual crime. And I just feel as though the way the laws are set up, we sort of lump all sexual assault and all rape sort of in the same basket, okay. And then when you have the rape, let's say, aggravated by the use of a controlled substance, okay, it's all in the same basket, when the realities of having that happen from a stranger versus happening from, let's say, an intimate partner, they may be very different realities, okay. And the law doesn't seem to really reflect a difference, all right. So this is the problem I have with California's one strike law. Okay, if we're talking about, let's say, some stranger giving somebody, let's say, a very serious dose of a serious drug, and then taking advantage and committing a sexual assault, okay, now I can see that getting up to 30 years, okay, because that's almost the equivalent of, like, say, a hardcore kidnapping, where it's from a stranger and they've actually made you unconscious and they've taken advantage of you. I think that's almost, to me, I think that does deserve almost a 30-year sentence, okay? But when I think of the realities of, let's say, an intimate partner sexual crime, all right, where the dosing may be a little more mild, okay, and where there's no intent whatsoever to put someone's life at risk, okay, probably, right? And so I just think that's a totally different context. And I think the level of culpability is different, to be quite honest. Okay. And so I think there is some political thing where, a lot of women who want more attention put on, let's say, the problem of intimate partner violence, intimate partner rape. Okay. I support them. There should be such a thing as intimate partner sexual abuse. Okay. But I think categorically, because the context of an intimate partner sexual abuse is so different from, let's say, when a stranger or someone really dangerous, let's say somebody who could really put your life in danger, somebody could just drug you in, let's say, a bar and just take you to a hotel room and just beat the crap out of you and rape you and stuff. I mean, that's totally different, right? So I think that the law, if we're going to allow these new categories, let's say, if we're going to put more emphasis on intimate partner violence, I think we should put it under a separate subsection of the law, so that it has a different sentencing consideration, because they're not comparable, you see. And this is a problem I have, is that, sometimes legislation can be artificial because legislation is brought with a political agenda, okay? And this is the problem I have, in a state like California, where you have so much Democrat representation. Many people innocently, they're going to vote for a Democrat just because they like Democrats, okay? But they don't realize everything that comes with it, all right? And so you're okay with the Democrat, but probably the average voter who votes for a Democrat probably agrees with a lot of the Democrat platform, all right? But they may not agree with, like, say, every single law that gets slipped through, okay? And if you could really pass every law, like every paragraph of every law, and really have, like, say, focus groups with the public to really make people, like, say, talk in groups and really talk about whether they think every paragraph of the law is fair, you might realize that the political parties, right, they might slip in a lot of content in legislation that in the end may not ultimately be fair, okay? And one of the problems I see in California, first of all, is that if we're going to start really capturing intimate partner sexual abuse, I say good, let's do that. But let's do it under a separate subsection, okay? So that we don't accidentally end up punishing people in one context, in an intimate partner context, where there's really not really the same level of danger and fear in the victims, and put it on the same level in terms of sentencing as, let's say, the situation where somebody could give you fentanyl in a bar and take you on the edge of death. You could be close to dying and they could rape you, and it would look the same under the law. Okay. So I just want to put that out there. Right. And now also the thing with the one strike law. All right. The one strike law is set up so that the 10-year statute of limitations gets extended. Okay. if you can prove that there was, like, say, the use of a deadly weapon in the commission of the sexual assault, or let's say the use of a controlled substance, all right, or if there's been repeat offenses, all right. But here's again, that looks good on paper, right? But do we really want to apply that to the intimate partner context? Okay, or if we apply it to the intimate partner context, then it seems to me they should add another paragraph saying that they should take away the mandatory minimum. You know what I mean? In other words, go ahead and let it in. Take away the statute of limitations. All right. If you can prove that in an intimate partner context, okay, there was the use of, let's say, a controlled substance, or there was repeat offending. Okay, I'm okay. Let's go ahead and take away the statute of limitations if you can prove it, or if you can at least make a reasonable showing that you're alleging something within the exception to the statute of limitations. Okay, fine. Go ahead and extend the statute of limitations. All right. But then, at least for the intimate partner context, allow another paragraph where, in cases where the commission of the crime was more than 10 years back, allow extra opportunity for the defense to provide, let's say, mitigating circumstances, including if the person has improved their behavior in the last 10 years. You know what I mean? Just to make it fair, okay? Because honest to God, all right, if we're going to go back so far in time, okay, what is the problem with going back so far in time? When you go back so far in time, okay, we no longer have the luxury of having, let's say, clinical information to figure out what kind of drugs were used, okay, or what dosages were used. All right, so we now no longer have any information, and all we have is just the word of the victim that I felt drowsy the next day. I felt like I'd been drugged. That could mean anything. That could mean she was given a very low dose of ketamine, okay, or GHB, which is really not very dangerous. It's not the same as giving them fentanyl or heroin, whatever. And so now what we're ending up with is kind of an artificial case, all right, where, because the evidence is so old and we don't really know what drugs were used, we don't have any way of measuring the dosage, and they're taking advantage of opening that time window without a balancing to account for the fact that that evidence is of low quality. All we have is the witness's testimony, and she doesn't know the dosage, and she doesn't even know the drug. She's guessing, right? So I just feel like, okay, I think the political parties are in part, because whenever, like, say, a Democrat party, when they have like a majority in the legislation, they can just shove legislation down the throats, right? And because the Republicans are in a minority, they don't really have any leverage to ask for additional language in the law or in the statutes, right? So basically, I'm not saying the judge made a mistake, and I'm not saying there's grounds for appeal, okay? But I can see how the sentence was unfair. All right, I can see how it's unfair just because politically, okay, these legislations get put in where on paper two crimes, let's say one crime against, let's say, an unknown person where someone's life really was in danger, and a crime, let's say, in an intimate partner context where lives were not really in danger, okay, they're put kind of on the same level artificially because we don't have nuances in the way the criminal statutes are drafted, okay? And we don't have, let's say, focus groups where we can put aside all the political parties and just ask the constituents in let's say a congressional district, all right? In every congressional district in California, how do people really feel about these laws? If the people are really given a chance to have, like, say, debates in their neighborhoods and really debate, how the laws should be drafted, then I think we would get probably more balanced laws. And then you wouldn't have these artificial sentences, okay? Because honest to God, people are just loving the fact that Danny's getting a life sentence, but we're forgetting that that sentence is typical for people who have abused children in a really serious way, okay? Like, say, he's getting the same sentence as somebody who may have abused, like, a small child, or let's say a teenager, okay, like an underage teenager, or somebody who has, let's say, drugged somebody, a stranger, and just put them in a hotel room and just rape the hell out of them. Okay, so, like, I don't know. I mean, hey, look, if you were to really, like, talk to every person in California and do a focus group, and I think maybe that's where we should go. I'll tell you what, I get tired sometimes of how strong the political parties are in the United States. Okay, because the whole reason why the United States was started was that we broke away from England, okay, back in the 18th century, we broke away because we felt that individuals didn't have representation in government, right? Okay. And now, what is our problem today in the 21st century? Individuals who may, the average individual in California who may not agree with exactly how these laws are written, okay, they don't really have representation when they vote for a Democrat, because that Democratic politician is more for the party than they are for the constituents. Okay. The actual average constituent may not actually agree with what the party drafts for these laws that get crammed down, crammed down the legislation in California, right? So, so basically, the way I look at it is that looking at all, just taking it all, like I'm not going to blame the judge. The judge probably followed the law, actually. That's the sad part, right? But I guess to think of how could the situation be better? It's not like he needs better lawyers. I mean, the lawyers, they probably fought really hard for him. Probably what I see is that I would like to see in California, like say, go for it. If you want to extend the statute of limitations on rape, I say go for it. Do it. Maybe there are cases where the statute of limitations should be extended. I'm in favor of that, but under what conditions, right? And also the one strike law. If you're going to allow, like say, the extension of the statute of limitations, based on, let's say, repeat sexual assaults, or repeat, let's say, if you use a controlled substance when you commit a sexual assault, okay, great. If that's going to be a standard where we can extend the statute of limitations, I say good. Let's go for it. But what are going to be the extra conditions? Okay, because if you're going to take a case that's 20 years old or 15 years old, because you're not going to have fresh evidence, what can we add to the statute to give also the defense sort of a balanced position in the litigation, so we don't end up with really kind of like, say, kind of absurd results, right? Where you'll end up with somebody who, let's say, in an intimate partner setting, okay, has given, let's say, a mild dose of ketamine or GHB or Rohypnol to their spouse, which is bad. It's a felony, but we're going to put them on the same level as a first-degree murderer or somebody who's committed like an aggravated kidnapping, or even more sentence. He's going to get sentenced to more time than someone who commits carjacking, you know what I mean, with a pistol, right? And I mean, or let's say he'll get a sentence that's twice as long or 3 times as long as someone who commits second-degree murder, right? I mean, I don't know. Hey, if everybody's okay with that, this is a democratic country, right? If people are okay with somebody like Danny Masterson in an intimate partner setting doing what he did, getting 3 times the sentence of a second-degree murderer, or more time than a carjacker who pistol whipped somebody, I say, hey, that's democracy, right? But here's the thing: do we really have that democracy? That's my question. If I were even a Democratic, representative in California, I would wonder if, on my conscience, should I pay more attention to my party, or should I do the hard work, and should I do focus groups in my district? Focus groups. I could actually advertise instead of spending so much money on the bullshit that politicians do and the bullshit that the party does. Why don't they spend money and do focus groups in the districts, okay, and invite people and pay them a little bit to sit for 6 hours and have a conversation about all the nuances of the proposed law, and take into account what the people really want, okay? Because in the end, even the Democrats, if they do customer service to their constituents and they really show that they're going to do all the legislation according to what people really feel in their neighborhoods, and doing focus groups, I think in the end, the people will be more satisfied, okay? And justice will be better, okay? Also, maybe there could be like a new regulation where if you have a super majority, like a big time majority, like say in a state legislature, the other party, the minority, should have the right to have, like, say, some debate on, let's say, sort of counterbalancing legislation, so that it's not like a veto right, but the minority party should at least have some voice in shaping the nuances of legislation. So in this case, I think Danny Masterson's sentence was unfair, but I think it's not because the judge made a mistake. I just think it's because the legislative process and the political process is not really set up for fairness. So thanks for watching, and wishing everybody the best.